Thank you, David. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Unity of Tacoma. We are an online spiritual community with a physical presence here in Tacoma, Washington. Whether you're joining us online or at our location here on South 74th Street, we're glad you've chosen to spend this time with us. I'm a homeowner for the first time. It's still hitting me what it is to own the home that I live in and own the piece of ground that we're next to it, that's next to us and that we live on. Our home has an empty lot next to it, and so and it has quite a large backyard. So we're still experimenting with how we're going to use things. But our favorite part so far was already there when we got there, but we built it up a little bit. It's a fire pit built with concrete bricks. This thing is 8 feet across, and it has a hole for the fire 4 feet across and 2.5 feet deep. Bill and I could be sitting across each other from the fire, and we'd both be sitting just as close to the fire as we can, and we'd still be that far from one another. It's we first burned the fire. We bought that place in June, but we didn't start our first fire until August. But after that, we did it 3 or 4 times a week, if the weather allowed us, and it pretty much did until this week. And my favorite part of that, my favorite aspect of that, occurs when everybody else has gone to bed. You know, I don't have an office that I have to be in at 8 o'clock the next morning, but other people do, and so everybody else heads in, and the fire is burning down, the embers are glowing, and I'm kind of alone with my thoughts, and I can watch the world turn. I can see the Big Dipper as I face from where my chair is. I'm facing right toward the north, and I can see the Big Dipper as it rotates around Polaris, and I can watch it. I see the moon rise in the east or set in the west, and sometimes both, depending on how late I stay out there. It brings a sense of peace to watch that, to be there. It may be a sense of peace, and that peace is related to a sense of order. Our sense of peace is very much related to the sense of order that we create within ourselves and the order that we see outside ourselves. And that order is our topic today, the faculty of order. It's something we create, but it's also something we need. For the record, my wife says that I'm not qualified to talk about order. Just so you know. Order is not created by control, but it gives us a sense of control. And when you see someone trying overly hard to control every aspect of his life or her life or control what's going on, what you're seeing is a fear of being out of order. It's called a fear of losing control, but think it through. What part of our mental emotional makeup is it attacking? Is it upsetting? It's that sense of order that we have. When this sense of order is out of balance, our life seems to be out of control. Well, when that sense of order is in balance, it's something that we create. Part of our sense of order comes from outer conditions. Let's face it. When things go wrong in life, it's often the things around you. It's not just inside you, right? It has to do with other people around you. Other people you work with, people you associate with, people you're related to. It has to do with all those things. From my backyard, I can see shooting stars sometimes in the middle of the city. You're not even supposed to be able to do that, but I can do that from my backyard. It's just dark enough somehow that especially during the Perseids in August, I saw 3 major big meteors while that was coming through. And I really hope it's clear tonight, just after midnight, and tomorrow night after midnight, because there's going to be another meteor shower. And I'm waiting for things to clear up. I don't think it's going to. But what we're going to be going through as a planet, we're going to be going through the remains we're going through the path that Halley's Comet followed in 1986. I saw Halley's Comet with my eyes in 1986. It's a once-in-a-lifetime memory for me. I don't think I'm going to see the one in 2061. I don't want to live that long. Some of you are going to get to see it. I'm so excited for you. That's just, it was just an awesome thing to see. But knowing, it's amazing to me, I guess, that we still know where that tail was, so we know when we're going into it. We know when we're going to see those shooting stars fall. That knowing is part of our sense of order. It gives us a sense of order in the universe. Humans have been staring into the sky in wonder and learning about the meaning of moving stars since we were evolved as humans, I believe. And as soon as we saw the stars, we started inventing stories about them. Stories about this constellation, there's a story about Leo, and there's a story about Aries, and then building belief systems around those constellations, those stories. In the Middle Ages, there was a belief system that went like this, that the sky was a series of spheres. So you have the planet, and then there's a sphere of oxygen around it, or air. They didn't know what oxygen was. And then around that, there's a sphere, and on this sphere, the sun rides. And on the next sphere, the moon rides. And on the next sphere, the planets ride. And on the next sphere, the outer stars with the constellations ride. And they go around us like clockwork, like a moving clock. And that's how the world worked. That was the story of how the universe works. And the idea was this, that you could be connected to those movements spiritually, because as the spheres rotated around each other, they made heavenly music. And that music could be heard by the angels, but it could also be heard by special people who were spiritually attuned to hear it. Today, it would be the equivalent today of someone calling a psychic. They would go to the person who could hear the beautiful music and hear what the angels have to hear. What does heaven have for me? What does the universe have for me? And they would go to these people and they would have readings by these people who could hear the music of the spheres. That phrase, the music of the spheres, it's in one of the hymns that Christians still sing, isn't it? What's the song, Karen? I don't know. The music of the spheres. Well, here's the thing. Here's what I want you to know. Those people who could claim that they could hear the music of the spheres, I have no doubt that some of them actually heard it. Absolutely no doubt. Could they literally hear it? Well, sure. If there were spheres, they could, but they can't. That's an impossibility. Looking back now, we know that's an impossibility. I think of that when someone claims to have ESP or claims to channel spirits, when astrology and other belief systems related to how the stars move and other things. I think of that because it doesn't, just because you don't believe in ESP doesn't mean they're not having an experience. You understand what I'm saying? Now, I'm not attacking anyone's beliefs here. I'm just trying to relay something that is important in understanding. Because if those people could believe they heard the music of the spheres, I promise you, I could come to believe that I was hearing the voices of angels. Even though I don't believe in angels, I could make myself believe that. The world's mythologies arise from the need for order. Because if you can't explain how the world works, the world is scarier to you. If you can explain how the world works, the world seems to be more in order. It creates that internal order. Understanding, the faculty of understanding, that was our first one. It helps us create that sense of order. So we believe we can tell how the world works. We believe we can explain how the world works, whether we truly can or not. And that's where the world's mythologies originate. The world's mythologies that drive This need for order also drives science. If a scientist can't explain how one part of a system works, the scientist will focus on that one piece to find it because it gives the science the sense of order. We need the sense of order that comes from understanding how the world works. We need to understand, we need to have a sense of order. These human capacities are interdependent. All of the ones we've studied so far, the 4 that we're going to study after today. These human capacities are interdependent on one another. You know the name Stephen Hawking, yes? Stephen Hawking wrote his signature work is titled A Brief History of Time. Here's what he wrote in the first paragraph of the first chapter of A Brief History of Time. He tells a story. How do we learn? We learn through storytelling. Storytelling is the basic unit of understanding, and it helps us have that sense of order. Here's that first paragraph. A well-known scientist, some say it was Bertrand Russell, once gave a public lecture on astronomy. He described how the Earth orbits around the sun and how the sun, in turn, orbits around the center of a vast collection of stars called our galaxy. At the end of the lecture, a little old lady at the back of the room got up and said, "What you have told us is rubbish. The world is actually a flat plate supported on the back of a giant tortoise." The scientist gave a superior smile before replying, "What is this tortoise standing on?" "You're very clever, young man. Very clever," said the old lady. "But it's turtles. All the way down." Whatever that means, it's turtles. All the way down. The humans have been trying to explain how the world works through story and mythology since they first sat around a fire and stared into it, and then stared into the sky and watched the Big Dipper as it rotates around Polaris. Why do people cling to such beliefs, though, like that lady had? Even though they're no longer valid, even though beliefs no longer serve, and they can't be disproved, or they've been disproven, we cling to beliefs. The reason is that each belief is a brick in the structure of our sense of order. Those bricks in the structure of those bricks that create the structure of our sense of order, those beliefs, they either create something functional or they create something that keeps us from functioning. And we all have a little bit of both. We need structure. I have a 2-year-old that lives in my house. A 2-year-old human is a wild animal. Did you know that? A 2-year-old human is basically a wild animal. But this one is being socialized. And being socialized through order, through establishing a sense of order, a structure of order that creates order. He has a bedtime. He has a wake time. He has a snack time. He has a meal time. So he doesn't have to fight the bedtime as much. He doesn't have to cry if he's hungry. He doesn't have to push to get snacks because he knows those are coming. He just relaxes into his life. Or he doesn't, because he's going on to the next stage. He's evolving into the next stage of his development. But that structure is what's going to give him a sense of order that can support him. So he can be supported in becoming a social being, becoming the social being that his DNA demands. Remember, we humans are hypersocial. Most animals aren't connected the way we are. Many animals don't even have to worry about other beings in their own of their own species. They have to worry about being eaten by other species. We seldom have to worry about that anymore. What we have to worry about is the person that's trying to get our job, or the person that's trying to get our boyfriend, or whatever it is. It's our social fabric that creates most of our problems, or our challenges in life. Scientists think we developed the big brain not because we need to worry about the environment and surviving the environment. It's because we need to survive each other. We need to survive society. We need to survive being this hypersocial. That's why we needed the big brain. A turtle may never see its parent after it hatches. Never. But it's still part of the circle of life. It still carries on that DNA. When I moved from Kansas City to Tacoma, I was lost for a time. I mean, really lost for a time. I grew up in Texas, where it's kind of flat, and every city that I know has kind of a central city, and then a series of circles around it, of highways. Houston's about to do one that's going to be like their fifth circle around it. But you can always get anywhere by just going around in a circle. And it's not like that here. It's just not like that here. I was so lost for a while. Every time we move from one house to another, it's a traumatizing event. It creates recognizable trauma that psychologists can identify. That's just a small illustration of the way we need order in our world, the way we need order in our lives. A sense of order about our lives gives us a chance, gives us the opportunity to function. We need that outer order, but there's another part, and that's the inner order. The ordering of our thoughts, the ordering of our beliefs, so that they actually do support us and propel us forward. The ordering of our thoughts so that we don't get stuck in false thoughts. I'm not going to go down that path, but we have options to create order in our lives, and the practice that's going to bring us there is diligence. Diligence in our other practices. Diligence in our thoughts, and being aware of our thoughts, in creating our thoughts. Ask diligence in checking our thoughts. Is this thought true, or is this thought not true? It may have seemed so at one time with spheres, and people can hear the spheres, so they must be true. And yet, we have responsibility for creating that. The sense of order is half dependent on others, but we have work to do inside too. And here's the thing, when we do our work inside to create a sense of what we call divine order, a sense of universal order, of being in the flow with the universe, when we do that, we become part of the order that's taking place around us. We may not see that we're affecting it, but we are. Every time you are in a place of order in your mind, in your heart, in your thoughts, you are a force for good in this world. We compartmentalize the world mentally. It's a tool that we use for order. So we label people, we label things, we label events, and by naming them, we get a sense of order in our lives. I have a great grandson in Kansas City who we used to say he has autism. There's a scale. He's on the autism scale, and he's impacted in almost every way that is classically autistic. He was abused by his father, his biological father. Who ended up going to prison for the abuse. He was choked. He didn't have enough oxygen for a while. We don't know if he would have been autistic before, but he suffers from that. He's on the spectrum. And what I want you to know is order is his life. If you have things in order for him, he can function. But if something is out of order, his whole universe is destroyed. I think there's a part of us. I think there's a part of every one of us that can go to that place where if something's out of order, it just destroys us. We don't know what it is until whatever it is has been yanked out. Whatever it is, whatever that rug is, has been pulled out from under us. Some belief we had turns out to be untrue. Some trust we had turned out to be unworthy. Something happened that we didn't expect, and our world is out of order. We have work to do. You have work to do. We can create that sense of order from the inside and allow that sense of order from the inside to manifest in our house, in our work, in our living spaces, and in our universe. And we can be part of that force for good. Let's take a moment for meditation.